Monkey, Kaiju, Dragon Ball, and more. It's Steven's Toy Reviews. Hello, collectors. It is Steven here with another monkey review. Today, we don't have an official title at the time of this review for this Kong. However, I'm going to throw a screenshot up here. We have, and this is cut off, the Ultimate King Kong Skull Island. So Skull Island is in parentheses, and the parentheses is cut off after Island, and it doesn't close. Now this randomly started popping up unannounced at Target stores, and we had no notion that this was going to get released. It literally just popped up. No press release, no information from NECA, it just happened. Now, the inkling that I have here that this may be a Target exclusive is there have been other Target exclusives where this has happened. Little to no warning, and it just pops up. Then we get an announcement later from NECA saying, hey, this is true. This figure is a Target exclusive. Could it be a timed release? Don't know, but I'm dragging this on. So we have a repaint of Kong dubbed an Ultimate figure, and we knew this was coming. But despite the fact that we knew this was coming, a lot of folks picked up the original Kong release. So, if you picked up the first one, should you double dip? And if you didn't get the first one, which one should you get? Let's take a look to see whether or not this one is worth adding into your collection. There will be a comparison with the first production run of the original Kong release, because apparently they did a reissue of the original Kong, and some have just seen preliminary box pictures without seeing it in hand, and this one actually matches a little closer to what the reissue looks like in terms of paint application, and I don't quite prefer this one over the original. Close-up pictures will explain why when we get to the comparison. However, this one is by no means bad. The wounds that Kong has, they actually look a bit more fresh. It looks like fresh blood, nothing that's set in. And I do have to say that the paint applications for this Kong are a bit more even and symmetrical. That was a critique that I had for the original in regards to the browns and so forth on his fur. The sculpting is fantastic, and it really brings out the finer details of Kong. What I will say, though, is I do believe that at some point this may have been a contender for a black and white version of Kong, or maybe that's where they really wanted to go with a retro style. Why? The eyes on both head sculpts, we'll see the other one in just a little bit here, do seem to be for a more so black and white figure instead of a full color action figure. Also, you are seeing the seam lines on the default head sculpt. That's because we have an articulated jaw. It's on a hinge. We'll see more so in the articulation section. Now, for this section, I am giving you an overall view of what the paint apps look like and what the sculpt looks like, because again, this is just a repaint. Overall, what we have here does look nice, but quite frankly, again, you'll see coming up soon enough, I think that while the paint apps here are good, I do prefer the original release. So with this basically just being a repaint of the original Kong that we saw, the articulation is going to be the same. And you already saw my review of the OG Kong, so whoa, you know what articulation points he has. You did see that original review, right? Yeah, you did, because you're awesome. So like we kind of talked about, the default head sculpt has a hinge for the jaw. And this kind of solidifies that you can do a hinge on the jaw, and it doesn't look terrible. I mean, that little seam there, it'll bug some folks, but it's pretty good. So, shoulders, swivel, hinge, good range of movement. We're going to talk about the legs on this one actually in just a little bit. While we do have a dedicated bicep swivel, which is good, we do have double hinge elbows. Now, the way that those hinges work is those hinges actually plug in the bicep and the forearm, so we do have another swivel point on both of those, so that's good as well. All of the hands plug in on a peg, so they do have hinge movement. So as you can see here, if you need to get a little extra something there, you can get that. Just if you need the sculpt to look a specific way, you can get that. We do have a ball joint for the ab crunch. Very good. I can't believe I forgot about this. Ball joint for the neck and where the head plugs in. Kong can look up about that far, down about that far. And of course, if you put your thumb here, you're going to be forcing the jaw open and closed. Now for the legs, as you know, from the original Kong, we do have ratchet joints. But on the original Kong, you could hear me move them. On this one, you really can't because they're relatively loose, but they still hold up well. So not super like boop, boop. No, they are going to feel a little smoother and not as thick and as, I guess you may say, tight, but they're still good. They do also have thigh swivels, which were a little stuck out the box, but easy to free up. Double hinge knees, which much like the elbows, feature swivels. And then we do have ankle rockers. Because the ankles plug in on hinges, where they're on the lower portion of the leg, and then that joint plugs in on swivels. Now the feet are curved ever so much, so Kong does have a little difficulty standing up. Just something to keep in mind. And those ankles don't really contribute to Kong standing forward. He always stands back just a little bit, so he does have a little difficulty in standing. So overall, Kong's articulation is very good. He just has a little bit of trouble standing. I like him. Time to talk about accessories, and what do we get? On the back of the box, it states we get a Pteranodon, a pit monster, we get a tree trunk, it's more like a big branch, and interchangeable heads and hands. Now for the hands, the ones that we're going to get the two sets that came with the original release, and then for this one, we're going to get gripping hands, so this way Kong can hold the accessories. For that alternate head sculpt, he's going to come with a pissed off head sculpt, and this is really, really cool. A lot of folks say that this looks very close to the Monsterverse Kong in Godzilla vs. Kong, where he relocates his shoulder, because, you know, you dislocate, so you relocate. Anyway, and he has that sort of grunting face where he's getting ready to get back in the ring with Godzilla and Mecha Godzilla. I mean, it's already been out of theaters and off of VOD for a month. If you don't know about MG, that's kind of your fault. Anyway, very great face sculpt. I really like this, and it looks great on the OG release as well. We'll take a look in just a second. Now, for the tree trunk, I mean, it's more of a branch. It looks good, but I do have to say that they added pink paint to it. It kind of takes away a bit from the realism, but when this is a little bit farther back, it kind of just blends in naturally, and well, I mean, Kong's gonna whoop somebody's ass with this, so it's not really that big of a deal. Now, for his little buddies, he is going to get the Pteranodon, and I do want to talk about this one first. Why? We have an instance here where we have a character that should have included a flight stand, and it really can't stand up on its own. Wonder where we've seen that before. Huh. Anyway, the actual figure does come with some nice detailing to it, particularly with some dot matrix printing on the back for the blue dots, which aren't symmetrical, but not necessarily to the point that it's sloppy, but more so to something that you would see in nature. Issue with this, it's small, very small, and not to scale. Yeah. Now, in regards to the pit monster, as NECA is calling it on the back of the box, this is actually a proto-skullcrawler. That's right, this is what inspired the Skullcrawler that we all know and love from the Monsterverse. Now this one I think is just a little too small, as we were able to see in the 1933 movie. It should be just a little bit bigger, but hey, you know, it works. Now, in regards to both of these guys, they are going to be minimally articulated. The pit monster does have a ball-jointed neck, and the jaw does open and close. Is it going to be on a ball joint or a hinge? I can't really tell, but it opens and closes. The Pteranodon, the head is plugged in on a ball joint, and the mouth is on a hinge. And you can open it up very, very wide. So in regards to accessories, that's all that Kong comes with, and quite frankly, for this release in a vacuum, we get a lot. Now, here's the downside. They sort of showed off the monsters that Kong comes with on their own a few months ago. And they sort of gave the implication that these would be bigger, and they didn't really put them in context with anything, so the assumption was a Kong accessory pack. and we didn't get it. Now, it's not necessarily ruled off the table, I would say, because they could do an accessory pack with these. Because, hey, who doesn't want to army build these? I mean, I would pay for an accessory pack with these and a non-specific T-Rex monster. Looking at you, Rebor. Hint, hint, hint. Nudge, nudge, nudge. But anyway, if you are looking to army build, you're going to have to buy a bunch of these Kongs. Now, like Pennywise and the several releases they did include some genuinely nice head sculpts with this release. So if you did want to get these head sculpts, hey, we now have a total of 4 unique, original donut steel NECA Kong head sculpts, and we now have another body that we can display all of them with. The monsters that Kong came with, they should have objectively been bigger though, specifically the Pteranodon. Now, if you are looking to get some other scenery or effect parts, I got videos to help you out. Now, we're going to do a size comparison where you can see truly this Kong doesn't really scale perfectly with anything that might be in your collection. There are a couple of oddball Godzillas here and there that may look okay, but yeah, there's nothing really that is perfect. But hey, for you Kong fans, it works just fine enough to tower over some of your other monsters. Now, like I promised, we would have a comparison with the OG Kong release, and I do want to make reference, I did include some other figures for a size comparison in that review, so do check it out. Maybe even some other Godzillas. Now, as you can see, the paint applications are different compared to the 2 different releases, and I do prefer the original release. Now, something that's been sort of going around because folks don't have this one in hand yet, it is just hitting the market. A lot of folks are saying they just resculpted the original 1933 based Kong head, and they just put in the hinge. Not true. This is a new sculpt. The top of the head has a different sculpt. There are new slash marks on it. Yep, pretty much new from the ground up. So which body do I prefer? The original. And quite frankly, if you were to just go ahead and swap them, you really wouldn't be able to tell the difference from that far away. So up close and personal, that's where you're going to see some of the finer details. So buy now, skip, or wait for a deal. If you have the original Kong, and at this point in the video you are still debating whether or not you want to get this, dude, flip a coin. If heads, get it. Tails, don't. I mean, I don't know how else you're going to be sold on this if you're still on the fence. If you don't have either of them and you can only get one, this is the one to get. Better accessories, really neat head sculpts, cool. And by default, we have the 1933 head sculpt and a sort of neutral head sculpt at the same time with that hinged jaw. So, yeah, like the other times where NECA has done a sort of vanilla release, I'm looking at you, Gypsy Danger and Pennywise, maybe some other instances, and then a little while later, they go ahead and they do a quote-unquote ultimate where they beef up the accessory count and put that on the market for just a couple bucks more. I wouldn't be surprised if we see another Kong. Yep, that's what NECA did here. But to be honest, this is really good. And it's better than the original in most of every way. Well, collectors, that brings us to the end of the video today, and I just wanted to take a second to thank you so much for watching. Now, you've heard a lot from me. I'd like to hear a little bit from you. Drop in the comments down below whether or not you liked it, you hated it, or maybe you were somewhere in between. I also want to take an extra second here for a nice, humongous thank you to all the patrons for SDR over the last month who have really helped the channel grow into what it can be today. So to all of you, 2 big thumbs up. Thank you very much. And now the end card should be popping up, which will give you a few clickable links, like maybe to subscribe or head on over to my Patreon, or some short URLs like to my social media or to my Teespring store. There's also a video I hand selected for you, so if you want to watch another STR video, I hand selected some good content for you to watch, so definitely check out that video. Thank you again so much for watching, and I'll catch ya in the next video.